Good day. It's now the 29th of June, 2021. 2021. Hot and humid here in Virginia. I'm going to go run in a little while, but I'm not going to run far. I said I'm going to do this one for a while, and here's the first segment, and I will do additional segments if you want them. Okay, and this one is going to be on politics, trust, and the FBI. And in this segment, I'm going to talk about how public trust has eroded in the last 11 or 12 years, really since 2009. How they went from having very high public trust, high agency morale, a high number of applicants, how all of these things tanked, and maybe why it happened. And you may ask, why does any of this matter? Isn't it a good thing if there's fewer applicants, especially if you want a job? Well, maybe it isn't. Okay, maybe it isn't. The FBI is, like it or not, the most powerful domestic agency in the U.S. government. Now, why do you say that, Jim Benesek? Because it can investigate you, it can investigate me, it can investigate our mayor, it can investigate our sheriff, it can investigate our governor, it can investigate the president and the president's children. It can investigate presidential candidates. It can obtain information on you in the name of national security that you don't even know about yourself. Okay, that's why it matters. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this segment is I'm going to show, number one, just simply document the erosion in public trust from several sources. I think they're pretty strong sources, and then I'm going to suggest why it might be. Why it might be, and then after that, it's really up to you whether I continue with it or not. I can't just get to the point. Some things you can't get to the point immediately without missing the point, okay? And this is one of those. Well, the key to the trust that people hold in any agency, there's really two pillars to it. Competence, are they competent? Can they do what they're supposed to do? And secondly, do they tell the truth? Are they trustworthy? Can they be counted on to do the right thing? And at one time, the FBI was probably the most highly regarded, I don't have to say probably, was the most highly regarded agency of the United States government. And this would be the period of time, probably for a huge period of time, the late 1930s to the early 70s. This guy is Efrem Zimbalist. He was an actor. He starred in a show called The FBI, which was a very popular TV show, prime time, ran Sunday nights, I believe, if I remember correctly. Remember, 3 generations of us were glued to this set, and we were assured that the cases that he worked were, recreations of cases drawn personally by the Bureau Director J. Edgar Hoover to show the great work of the FBI. And the American people regarded probably 85 to 90% at this period of time, going through the 1960s, from the 30s to the 60s. The FBI agent was the epitome of patriotism, of professionalism, apolitical, not self-interested at all, only interested in crushing crime and chaos and disorder, and just really guardians of the republic. Now, any perception that's too good to be true probably is. As a matter of fact, it is. And as of the mid-1970s, there was a huge erosion in public trust at the FBI. Why? Because there were revelations that they were doing things that no one knew that they were doing, things that they shouldn't be doing. And that'll be a topic of a future video. Now, what happened as a result of that? Well, this is what happened. The agency reformed. Congress limited their powers. They were redirected to fight crime, and public confidence in the FBI rose. And by 2009, it was at a high, a post-Vietnam War high. It was nowhere near as high as it had been in the 60s, but again, in 2009, 70% of respondents in a Pew Research poll had high confidence that the Bureau would do the right thing. Agency morale, which is measured by the Office of Personnel Management Best Places to Work survey, the employees ranked their agency in the top 20%, the top fifth of agencies, which is all you can really expect. And in that year, 2009, they had almost 69,000 applicants for a special agent position, and they were only open for a certain period of time. They would only be open for a month or 2 months on usajobs.gov, and then they were closed. This was the highest number ever. Now, granted, there was a huge recession in 2009. I remember that. But again, it's a lot of people trying to get 500 jobs, okay? It's a lot. And these things show great confidence in the FBI. People want to work there, people are happy to work there, and people think it's a great place to work. So what happened? Well, in 9 years, public confidence in the FBI plummeted, particularly among conservative Americans. By 2018, only 50% of people who are Republican or leaning Republican expressed confidence in the agency. And the agency morale, as measured by the Office of Personnel Management Best Places to Work survey, it no longer ranked them in the top fifth. They were now in the bottom half. And we're not talking about the DMV, we're talking about the FBI. And in 2018, the number of applicants plummeted from a high of almost 70,000 in 2009 to only 11,500, the lowest in modern history. Well, I think it should be noted that while public opinion tanked in 2018, it did rebound somewhat, but I think it's still way below where it should be. I think that the agency morale, is certainly in the bottom half, and it should not be. We're not talking about the DMV, we're talking about the FBI. And while they do have more applicants for jobs now than they did in 2018, they're still far below their high of 2009, and they are advertising constantly, and they have lowered their standards somewhat. Now, why is this? Well, as I said in my intro, trust, what are the components of trust? Twofold, really, competence and truth-telling. And here you see the photos of four very different men. The man at the bottom, Edgar Hoover, ran the Bureau from 1924 to his death in 1972. He was once one of the most respected men in America. Today he is not. Why? Well, after his death, revelations of a vast surveillance operation that he operated were revealed, and the operation gathered intelligence on just about everyone. Allegedly, it was targeting potential terrorists and subversives, and they did find some of those, but they also surveilled many innocent Americans who had not indicated that they were likely to engage in violence. And the surveillance was so thorough that it enabled the director to blackmail politicians and engage in unlawful operations to disrupt the activities, and I'm putting this in quotes, of anti-American and hate groups. Now, the three men at the top, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, they're all former senior executives. All were fired. Director Comey was fired, as you probably know, by President Trump. Why? Well, Trump didn't like him, but that's not why he was fired. He was actually fired at the insistence of the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, for what they thought were his improper actions during the investigation of a presidential candidate who utilized her personal unsecured server to store classified emails. Now, Comey was fired in a manner that I believe was ungracious and even loudish, but it does not erase the fact that he should have been fired. The way he was fired was improper, but he should have been fired. Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe, not fired for anti-Trump emails or tweets, but for lack of candor, for not telling the truth to investigators of the Office of Inspector General during investigations of their actions surrounding, number one, the investigation of a former presidential candidate who may have improperly used her emails to store classified materials, and also about allegations about domestic spying. So these men were fired, I think properly so. Two of them are suing to get their jobs back. I'm not saying they're guilty of anything, but I'm saying this is a reason why people are distrustful. Agencies can be used improperly. We're freedom-loving people. We have prior experience. We know that domestic spying can and has been used for political purposes. Well, there you have it. Some stories you can tell very quickly and get right to the point, and some you can't get to the point without missing the point. And this is one of those. So the next one, if you want it, will be the history, not a big history lesson, but It's going to be the rise and fall of J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, how it engaged in improper surveillance, how all of this came out, what the public and the Congress did to solve the problem, and how sometimes when people forget the past, they're doomed to repeat it. Okay? And that'll be the subject of the next one. And then the last one will be the FBI since 9/11 and how they regained the powers that they once had, perhaps had not been given to them, but powers that they had taken on themselves, how these powers were specifically given back, and how they may be subject to abuse and might not be that good of an idea. So those will be the next two segments if you want them. So thank you for watching. Have a good day, and don't go running in the heat.